Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Colonel Hayden Barlow. We warmly welcome the family of Private James Casey, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge Mr. Ben Robert Smith, recipient of the Victoria Cross for Australia and Medal for Gallantry. We also welcome the members of the Illawarra Leadership Program that are joining us for the ceremony today. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast around Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors, as well as students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Mary MacKillop Catholic College from Warrnambool, and St Philomena's Primary School from Bathurst. From Victoria, St Paul's Grammar School, Warragul. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult Party A10, Catapult Party present, arms.
boys and girls, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private James Casey. Popularly known as Jim, James Casey was born in Rushworth, Victoria, to Patrick and Susanna Casey. He grew up with 11 siblings and attended Moore Estate School before becoming a farmer at Barham on the banks of the Murray River in the Western Riverina district of New South Wales. Casey was 27 years old when he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in March 1916. He was assigned to the newly formed 38th Battalion, which undertook training before sailing for England in June. After further training in Britain, the 38th Battalion crossed to France in late November 1916, moving into the trenches of the Western Front for the first time on the 1st of December. Casey became ill a week later and was admitted to hospital with mumps. He rejoined his unit on the 29th of December, enduring the harsh winter of 1916 and 1917, while mainly engaged in raiding German trenches. In early June, the 38th fought its first major battle at Messines in Belgium. On the 4th of October, Casey and the 38th Battalion were part of the Battle of Brutsenda in Belgium. While the battle was well planned and ultimately a success, it rendered almost a third of battalion casualties. The Australian troops were heavily shelled on the start line, and hundreds became casualties even before the attack began. Private James Casey was killed during the battle. Soldiers who witnessed what happened that day said that James and a few others were buried when high explosive German shell landed where they were sheltering. Private William Gibson, who was in the same platoon as Casey, told an interviewer, "I helped to dig them out, but they were all dead on recovery." A friend of his battalion, Private William Bilby, said Casey was one of the bravest chaps I ever met and one of the best. Private Casey was buried nearby, but the cross marking his grave was later destroyed and his remains were never recovered. He was 29 years old. His name is listed on the Meningate Memorial at Ypres in Belgium. It is also listed on the on the Roll of Honour on my right among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Casey, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Catapult Party present! Arms!
lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Counterfoil party now. Words. Turn. Counterfoil party quick. March.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.